No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is a special edition of Outspoken. One of the favourite features of my former GB News show was The Clash. And so we are bringing it back for a week of special debates where we tackle the biggest issues in the world. And today, one of the most important questions of all, is Islam good for Britain? Joining me today is campaigns director and spokesman for Restore Britain, Charlie Downs, to clash it out with international speaker and Islam activist Abdullah Al Andalusi, as well as the lawyer Akhmed Yakoob. As a result of our special week of The Clash, we will have no Greatest Britain and Union Jackass today, but the Royal Uncancelled After Show continues as normal over on Substack at www.outspoken.live. That is after the main show. But now, let's go. The conversation on whether Islam is compatible with our British way of life is not going anywhere as we see the rise of sectarian politics spread across the UK and fears that the religion is being prioritised over Christianity. While many in the disunited kingdom embrace the influence of the Muslim religion in British society, there are growing concerns that it is erasing our heritage and values. From the recent by-election in Gorton and Denton to fury over the widespread use of halal meat, to the king seeming to prioritise Muslim messages over Christian ones. Every part of our life now seems to be influenced by Islamism. So is that really a good thing for Britain? Let's clash now with Restore Britain's Charlie Downs, who says Islam isn't good for Britain. He is going head-to-head with the international speaker Abdullah Al Andalusi and outspoken lawyer Akhmed Yakoob. They both argue that Islam is good for Britain today. So I'm going to let you put all of your case for 1 minute to kick off. So Akhmed Yakoob, let's start with you. You've got 1 minute. Go. Why is Islam good for Britain?
Britain is at its best when it lives up to its own values, freedom of conscience, rule of law, family, charity, and personal responsibility. Islam, properly understood, reinforces those values rather than undermines them. British Muslims are doctors in the NHS, soldiers in the armed forces, business owners, teachers, neighbors. Islam teaches prayer, charity, fasting, modesty, respect for parents, and care for the vulnerable. Those are not threats to Britain. They are moral contributions. The question isn't whether Islam is good or bad. The real question is whether Britain believes in religious freedom and equal citizenship. If we start measuring faith communities by fear or headlines rather than lived reality, we undermine the very liberal democracy we claim to defend. Islam is a part of Britain.
Your minute's up, but we'll come back to you, Akhmed, very shortly. Charlie Downs, you say Islam isn't good for Britain. Why?
Well, I do want to qualify that slightly because I think something that Akhmed said there was very important, which is that I commend Britain's Muslims for their resistance to the totalizing, ultra-progressive liberalism that has completely taken over our society. I admire the piety and conservatism of Britain's Muslim community. And I think in a lot of ways, the white British population could learn a great deal. Now, with that being said, Britain is not a Muslim nation. Britain is a Christian nation and has been since its conception. The constituent nations of the United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, are all Christian nations and have been since their very beginning, thousands of years ago. And so we are now in a situation where we are broadly a secular society, and as such, our culture is kind of dissolving. So it's not surprising that a muscular religion like Islam is making gains in our society and is able to exert tremendous influence politically and culturally because we as a people have forgotten who we are.
Okay.
But what I would say is that Christianity is the answer to this, not Islam.
Okay, your minute is up. Abdullah Al Andalusi, why is Islam good for Britain? 1 minute, go.
Oh, firstly, I wouldn't characterise being against genocides around the world as sectarian politics. I think it's good for Britain's reputation if Britain stands against genocide. Anyway, as for Islam, Islam encourages many good community values, values which would actually make a better citizen. We don't drink. We actually don't have sex outside marriage, or not meant to anyway. Spread of STDs is much lower in Muslim countries across the globe. Muslims are actually 4 times more charitable, as measured in the charity sector, than their fellow peers. Muslim doctors are actually around 13.5% of the total UK doctors, despite the fact that Muslims are only 6.7% of the population. The Quran encourages us to do good, to show mercy, to be generous to our fellow people of the tribe of Adam, which is mankind. So these are all characteristics that makes a Muslim a good citizen. Not because we want to be a good citizen, that's our primary goal, it's because we want to worship God. But when worshipping God, we become good citizens.
Okay, your minute's up. So let's continue this debate now. Feel free to jump over each other, jump over me. You've laid out your case. But Akhmed Yakoob, I want to start with you because I think what I've just heard is a Pollyanna-ish version of Islam. I mean, the last I saw, Akhmed, of you was the Maccabi FC Tel Aviv game, right, in Birmingham, and you had a baseball bat on TikTok and were suggesting that your fellow Muslims should maybe put it in your car. So I've seen quite a lot of encouraging of violence from you, Akhmed.
You need to get your facts right, because that video was not on the same day as the Maccabi Tel Aviv game. I am a lawyer. That video was simply an informative video for clients. It had nothing to do with the Maccabi Tel Aviv game. You need to get
you're being disingenuous there, aren't you?
No, look, I'm not afraid of you. I don't need to lie to you. I'm not afraid of you. If you only lie if you're afraid of someone. We only fear Allah. We don't fear anything else. That's what you need to understand. I would not be here trying to lie to you because I don't fear you. That's what you need to understand. I would have said
But you were encouraging violence, weren't you? Why else would people need baseball bats in the back of their cars?
Well, that video was simply a video, an informative one for my work purposes. And you probably haven't even listened to the whole video.
I did.
Can I just come in here very
would have
quickly,
known
Dan?
that he had nothing to do. He had nothing to do with the Maccabi Tel Aviv game. Then that video simply says, if you have a baseball bat in your car for a sporting reason, but you can't demonstrate that you are headed to...
Well, let me give you another example. Just before you come in, Charlie, let me give you one other example. You also represented those young men who were involved in the Manchester airport incident, and you claimed that the incident was an attempted assassination on those young men. Do you take that back?
No, of course I do not take that back. The police at that time, the way they acted at the first instance, what I saw, I never take anything back, Dan. That is not me.
That is not me.
Charlie,
once I say something, I'll stick with it, and I'll say it again.
I respect that. I actually respect that.
I think we're basically...
I'm not going to take anything back. I'm not afraid of you guys. I'm not going to take things back.
I think we're basically getting to the root of the problem here, which is that we're currently sitting in England. I'm an English guy. I'm concerned about the future of my country. And we're talking about faraway desert conflicts that don't affect my people in any way. Like, I don't care about Maccabi Tel Aviv, and I don't care about Islam and the Muslim community's issues with Maccabi Tel Aviv being in Britain. I don't approve of what Israel is doing. I'm not a supporter of the state of Israel. I don't think we should have anything to do with that. But we are in a situation now because of mass immigration, because of multiculturalism, and because of the permissive culture that has been allowed to build up around the importation of sectarian conflicts on our streets, that we're now having to have conversations about, what essentially amount to tribal conflicts from faraway lands playing out on the streets of our own towns and cities.
Isn't that the problem? That you're talking about genocide, right? But actually, what we need to be worried about is what is happening here in our United Kingdom. Yet the politics that you want to import is the politics of the Middle East. And we don't want that on the streets of the UK.
Does the UK have a foreign ministry?
Yes.
Does it have foreign missions like embassies and business interests around the world? So England cares about the rest of the world. Otherwise, it would be an isolationist. It wouldn't have any trade with the rest of the world. So if you care about the rest of the world and you're interacting with the rest of the world, and in many cases bombing the rest of the world, then I think international conflicts, it's the British government that's brought it home to here, not anybody else. But Maccabi Tel Aviv has a proven record of being not only publicly racist, but violent in many capitals where their team has played. They have a kind of a yob culture that comes within their fans. So that's very much, it's not law and order in the streets of Britain a concern that we should be having. So of course in Maccabi Tel Aviv, because they're violent.
But you must admit though, like this is a foreign sectarian conflict that doesn't actually have any real roots in the United Kingdom playing out on our streets because of mass immigration.
I'll
Wait,
interrupt
wait,
there.
Ahmed, just let Ahmed come in here.
I'll interrupt there. That match, the reason the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were banned because they went into Amsterdam and they were on a Muslim hunt. They were going around saying,
That's
"Ole,
not why
ole,
they were
get to the
banned. We
Arabs."
know that now.
Of
The
course we
police
don't
made
want
it
them
up.
people-
The police
Of
chief
course
had
we
to
don't want them
go.
people in Birmingham.
But
He didn't make it up. No, completely. The actual evidence that Maccabi Tel Aviv, or their supporters are involved in racially motivated violence is proven.
But I think we're
That
talking,
wasn't disputed.
we're
That
talking
wasn't
past,
why
we're
he
talking
banned
past
it.
each other a little bit here because,
Yeah, we
because
don't care
my
about
point is
Maccabi
that
Tel Aviv. That
I
is the
don't, yeah,
argument.
I don't care particularly. I mean, I have used the phrase genocide in Gaza in the past because I think that what Israel is engaged in is atrocious, right? And I don't support the government of the United Kingdom supplying Israel with arms and intelligence in order to assist in that conflict. I don't think we should be involved at all.
Then
But what I'm
where's the
saying.
problem?
But what I'm saying is because of the policy, the undemocratic, the policy that's never been given democratic consent, which is mass immigration from the Middle East into the United Kingdom, we are now in a situation where because that conflict is happening, and we have a lot of people in this country now who are from that region of the world who have a vested interest, quite understandably, in that conflict. We're seeing the conflict play out on our own streets. And I don't think that that's a good thing. And I don't think we should be in this situation. And yet we are, like you say, because of our government. And so when we ask the question, is Islam good for Britain? I would say that given the current geopolitical situation,
Yes.
no.
Well, indeed. And that's why I want to talk about the Gorton and Denton by-election, of course. And let me start with you, Ahmed, because I don't know if you saw what went on in Manchester, but there was quite clearly a decision made by the Green Party to embrace extreme Islamic messages. And as a result, there was a lot of, I believe, cheating going on. Other people might call it family voting, but there was a block vote for this Green Party by Islamists. And to me, that is really bad for Britain because I know, Ahmed, that you don't believe in a vast majority of what the Green Party goes for. You don't believe in extreme trans ideology, do you, Ahmed? You don't believe in the legalization of all drugs, do you, Ahmed?
Of course not. And let me talk to you about the election. I'm in politics. I've stood
know.
to election, challenged the Home Secretary, and I stood for the West Midlands mayoral election. So what happened in Gorton and Denton was basically protest votes. Nobody wanted to get Labour in, definitely, and reforming. So what happened is the Muslim community got together and voted for the Greens and made sure that we don't get reforming and we don't get Labour in.
Yeah, the definition of
But-
sectarian
but
politics.
this is-
Wait. So what are the extreme
only
Islamist
sectarian
messages by the
politics.
Green Party? Well, are they supporting Sharia law? Is Zach Polanski
No.
supporting
Yes.
the banning of alcohol in the UK and the banning of pork? No, right? Simply,
No,
they
it's
have a
not.
position. They have a position on Gaza, which is England shouldn't support genocide, which I think you're actually agreeing with. England should not
Yeah.
support genocide. We shouldn't trade
But I
with,
also
with
don't think we
Israel.
should import millions of people from
we
the
shouldn't
region.
trade arms with Israel. We shouldn't aid their military operations by sending spy planes to Gaza. If England truly said, you know what, we are staying out, we're having no connection with Israel, we'd all agree.
Yeah, but come on.
So where's the
vote-
problem then?
Because
How's
the
that
vote-
extreme
the vote
Islamist
was
message
about
then?
so much more than that, and you know that. And
And
what-
why is it sectarian politics when Muslims are involved only? Why isn't it sectarian politics when there was
Because
a...
you voted for a party, Ahmed, and you
or if-
encourage your people
Can I just-
to vote for a party that
No.
does
Every time
not
a brand
share
man gets
your
involved in
philosophy.
politics-
And you
So
know
every time
that
a brand man
because you
gets
don't
involved
even
in
like
politics-
gay men or women.
Is Christians voting
time a
along
brand man gets
Christian
involved in
lines
politics,
or with
sectarian.
Christian interests? Is that sectarian?
I'm sorry, no Christian would vote for a party that goes completely against their
I'm just saying that.
belief
But if there were
system.
Christians voting for a far right party because they thought the far right party supports Christian
Okay, so do
values,
you believe in
is that sectarian politics?
LGBTQI+?
Wait, is that sectarian politics as well?
Yes.
Abdullah,
No,
so,
so
can,
Christians,
can I come in
Christians
here? Very-
should not vote. Christian nationalists or anyone should not vote with their Christian
sorry.
sentiments.
Christians believe in democracy.
It's not in the Bible.
No, I mean, as a Christian, I can speak. I can
It's
speak
Greek.
on this.
It's a pre-Christian Greek pagan idea.
But that's
Christians,
not how
so
British
but
politics
Christians are not
works.
wedded to democracy. I agree with you, right? But what I would say on the issue of sectarianism, obviously, this is language that Matt Goodwin and Reform have used to describe the outcome of the Gorton and Denton by-election. But I think what we saw there, the way in which the Muslim community was activated and organised in favour of the Green Party, is actually in a way quite admirable, because this is a community that understands itself, that understands its own interest, is prepared to stand up for its own interests and mobilise itself. And my view is that what Reform failed to do was to do the same with the white working class vote in that seat, because there was a turnout of 47% at the Gorton and Denton by-election. And Reform, if they were actually fulfilling the role that they, the space they occupy in British politics, they would be seeking to mobilise their natural base in the same way that the Greens do. But they failed to do that.
Well, absolutely. And I can have respect. But Ahmed, what I want to ask you specifically about, if that's okay, is just how you justify voting for the Green Party as a Muslim, and not just voting for them, encouraging your people to do so.
Okay, simple. Now, we cannot vote for Labour. They are genocide enablers. We can't vote for Reform. So the lesser of the three evils, I would say, was the Greens Party, and they got elected. Now, just because every time a brown man gets into politics, you guys say it's divisive politics or it's sectarian politics. And in that sense, it's quite nonsense, that is, because we have a lot of working class white people that voted for the Green Party as well. Like you just said, they didn't vote for Reform. So the thing is, it's only when brown Muslim men get involved in politics.
No.
It's class that's sectarian politics.
It's not, Ahmed, because what I'm just trying to dig down on, and I really feel this is important because it's not a conversation that is had in the mainstream media. So I really I'm not even asking it as a loaded question. I'm just
I don't agree
because because your religion, let's just be honest about it, please, does not particularly support the rights of women. Certainly does not respect the rights of gay men like me, certainly does not support the rights of trans people. That's fine. Like, I'm okay with that. But for you to go and then support a party that is so extreme on those issues, that makes me question whether you actually do care about morality or if you just care about power at any cost.
Religion is a protected characteristics along with the things that you have mentioned. Islam teaches us to live and let live without infringing on each other's religious or philosophical views. No Muslim will dehumanize a gay man. It doesn't work that way. It's a live and let live policy, Dan.
Ahmed, that's not true.
The Quran says there is
true.
no
Abdullah,
compulsion
you might as well quote the
in
Quran.
religion, because truth is clear from falsehood. We're not here to compel anybody. We're not here to compel, and firstly, we're not even here to care what people do in their private lives. It is irrelevant. Even the Islamic law
women have
doesn't
the
care.
same rights as men under your religion.
Women are given rights which were denied in the West for thousands of years, basically. Rights to, including rights to, you could say, vote, own property. In marriage, their property doesn't become the husband's to spend. That was a British institution here, where the husband controls the wife's property only until the 19th century. So Islam gives women rights.
What rights?
Now,
So Islam is progressive.
Right to own property? No. Giving women rights. Every different religions, perspectives, and political philosophies give women rights. We all differ as to what men and women are, their roles, whether roles should be given particular rights or protected. The traditional family, for example, someone could say the traditional family is patriarchal and is detrimental to women's rights, whereas traditional Christians will say it's not. It might not be the exact equal role between the patriarch man and the woman, but it's the best way for women are protected.
Ahmed,
A Christian would say this.
Ahmed,
A Jewish person would say this.
What about the burqa, the hijab, and the niqab? Ahmed,
What about it?
should all women be wearing it?
Well, it's up to them. Exactly. Islam does not force or implement anything onto people. It's up to the women. And let me tell you something. A woman in a niqab and a burqa is better than women going around naked on our streets. If Islam, forget Islam for a second, if England followed proper Christianity, there wouldn't be males fully naked cycling around North London. There wouldn't be women like Bonnie Blue sleeping with over 1,000 women, over 1,000 men. in one night and then getting congratulated and commended for that stuff. If England followed a proper Christian way, forget Islam for now.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree with that. And this is what I said in my opening statement, is I admire the ability of the Muslim community in this country to resist the degeneracy of the West, right?
Dan,
but nevertheless, let me just finish, Ahmed, here. Because the issue we're talking past here is when we're talking about Gorton and Denton, when we're talking about voting along the lines of, you know, what's happening in Gaza, for example, the fact remains that that would not even be an issue if we didn't have a Muslim community in this country, because largely Islamic immigration to this country has happened since the end of the Second World War, largely against the wishes, expressed wishes of the majority of the British people.
British people don't have a conscience.
Sorry, the non-Muslim
British people. Are you saying that? So the non-Muslim British people or English people, whatever constituency you represent, you say they don't have a conscience. They don't care about genocides around the world that Britain is involved in.
No. I'm not
caused
saying that.
Or created the political circumstances, because it was the mandate of Palestine was controlled by Britain, and Britain just left without actually protecting the majority indigenous population from the invading Jewish Europeans.
I think there are
colonizing the place.
So I think there's a lot of people in this country.
Britain's to blame.
Come on.
Britain
You asked me a
created the
question.
mess. Britain made the mess.
Well, I think there's an interesting conversation to be had there, right?
Yeah.
But on that point, I think there's a great many people in this country who are wealthy enough to care about geopolitics and what's happening in other parts of the world to their own. But there's a great many more people who are struggling and don't have the luxury of caring about what's happening thousands of miles away, and who are more concerned with putting food on their table, having a house over their children's heads. And yet we're still, our politics, because of the demographic reality of this country now, our politics is being forced towards these foreign, I wouldn't say sectarian, but these foreign irrelevant issues to the majority of people.
Because what I would prefer should remove international affairs from the sections.
No, did I say that? No, I didn't.
Because the working class person cannot be trusted and shouldn't care about what's happening outside the borders of the UK. Is that what you're saying?
You know that it's not what I'm saying.
Well, exactly.
The point that I'm making.
So why are you denying their agency to care about what's around the world?
It's a MAGA philosophy. It's an America First philosophy, which maybe has gone out the window in recent weeks.
Very much.
But Ahmed Yakoob, I just wanted to ask you, Ahmed, though, I wanted to pick up on the point you made about Bonnie Blue, because I'm sure most people watching, and I know Charlie agrees, and I agree, that actually there is a huge amount of degeneracy in the United Kingdom, which is a massive problem. And no one is going to deny that. I think what Bonnie Blue has taught our young girls is despicable. But it's not to take away from the fact, Ahmed, that you encouraged the voting of a truly degenerate party in the Greens. They are degenerate in so many ways. I mean, they literally want crack cocaine to be legalized. And you have effectively tried a reverse takeover of this party to make it an Islamist party in order to further your Islamist cause in the UK. Now, you can understand why that makes me say that Islam is not good for Britain, because you are empowering this degenerate party led by this mad guy, the tit whisperer, Zach Polanski, who literally believes that he can hypnotize women into having bigger breasts and charges them £200 for the privilege, and you are empowering him. And that's, for me, the definition of sectarianism, because you don't care about the reality of his party, you just care about power.
Well, the reality is this, that we couldn't get Labour in. I mean, I prefer Zach Polanski over Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage, to be fair, regardless of what he's like. And I do not follow his policies. I do not agree with none of the policies. I know some of the policies. Well, most of the policies are degenerate policies. But the fact is, I'll say it again, it's the lesser of the three evils. And we made sure there was no split in vote. That's why we made sure there's no Workers' Party candidate here. And they got in. He got in, Hannah Spencer got in.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that we're going to...
You're proving my point. You're proving my point. Abdullah wanted to come in.
That doesn't mean that we are going to now join the
Muslims are not one united bloc. No one is, right? So it's not like we all get together and we all somehow agree somewhere.
Oh, it was pretty strong in Gorton and Denton. Come on.
Well, there might be very strong desires amongst Muslims there to vote for Greens, but you have to ask the question why, right? Why the Greens, despite having policies that are anti-Islamic, are very strongly anti-Islamic? Well, it's simply this. Many of the Muslim heuristics is simply which party will kill the less people, oppress the less people. It's as simple as that. Labour will support genocide and killing across the globe. Many of the right-wing parties support deportation of British citizens from this country as well as God knows what, removing clothes from women, burqas and hijabs, banning, which is actually very anti-British to control people's clothing.
Yes, usually I would agree.
Many Muslims are just basically asking themselves, which country is going to kill the least amount of people and oppress the least amount of people?
Well, look, usually I would agree, but I just feel that both of you are not being honest. You say that Muslim women make all of these choices and that you treat them equally. But I've just looked at your own words, including the fact that you once said that 70% of hell is going to be made up of women. You described men as being the king in Muslim households. You said that women should be kept at home. And you also laughed along with jokes implying domestic violence, such as asking if a man would defend himself if a woman entered his personal space. Now, this was all in a 2024 podcast called Minted Minds. As I say, I'm not someone who patrols speech, right? I'm not calling on you to be cancelled. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't hold those views. But I'm just trying to get a bit of honesty from you that your religion does not believe that women are equal to you, Ahmed.
No. I'm being perfectly honest. Women are above us. I treat my wife above me. That's why she's at home. She's my queen. She's protected and she's provided for. I go out there and I do the dirty work. I get my hands dirty and I work. I provide for my children and I provide for my wife, and they are happy with me. Alhamdulillah. That's what it is. From an outsider's point of view, I don't know what you guys think, but which woman wouldn't want to sit at home and drive a £100,000 car without working a single day in her life, and all she has to do is stay at home, take the children to school, and come back home?
Again, right, this is the part of the Islamic mindset that I admire. It is the traditionalism, right? Because as a Catholic, I can recognize a great deal of what Ahmed's talking about in my own life. Like, it's very desirable to have a stay-at-home wife and to provide for her and to treat her as the most important thing in life. Well, no, I don't. But I do also believe in modesty, and I do think that there is a problem in this country of women dressing immodestly. But once again, we're getting past the point here, which is that, we're talking about, for example, in Gorton and Denton, the three parties, but like the Green Party being the lesser of three evils. And again, the question is for whom? Because we're talking about the Muslim community here, who once again are only here as a result of government policies that the British people have voted against at every opportunity for the last 80 years. We never wanted mass immigration from Islamic parts of the world, and yet it has been foisted upon us.
Well,
and ever since it has begun, let me just finish, right? Ever since it has begun, what that has led to, among other things, are grooming gangs, terrorism, and increasing ethno-religious balkanization in the towns and cities of Britain. And this is just a statement of fact. This is not an opinion.
Do you know how representational democracy works? Which is you elect representatives. They don't do referendums for every law or every policy. They act in Britain's best interest on your behalf. This is the system. If you want to change this system and remove this British institution that's been here for over 300 to 400 years, be open and plain to say so. But unless you're talking about bringing a fascist government or a dictatorship, I think let's keep the discussion on point, which is, firstly, grooming gangs I'd like to get to. Grooming gangs do not represent Islam, clearly. If Muslims can't even have sex outside marriage consensually, right? We're not allowed to have sex outside marriage at all. How can they actually be sleeping with women?
You do acknowledge that Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs, or I call them Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, you acknowledge that is a reality, right?
I acknowledge that there are grooming gangs for virtually almost every ethnicity.
Ahmed has to go, so I'm just going to give him the final word on this. Ahmed Yakoob.
After that, no Pakistani Muslim was mentioned in the Epstein files, apart from a man called Imran Khan, who was mentioned as a threat to them, as a bigger threat to Khomeini, to them. Not that he was complicit in the pedophilia.
Okay, but what about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, Ahmed?
No Pakistani man was mentioned.
No, but Ahmed, what about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs of thousands and thousands of young white British women?
They're not significantly overrepresented in the crime statistics for the community.
The majority of people who are charged or convicted of sexual offences against the children are people like yourself that look like you.
But not if you look on a per capita basis, where Pakistani Muslims are massively overrepresented.
My argument
actually not.
The majority of the pedophiles in this country are white middle-aged men that look like yourself.
Okay, so the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, that's just a made-up thing, is it?
No, they're not. But Pakistanis or Asians are not overrepresented. They're proportionally represented. So Asians are about 8 to 9% of the population. And concerning group-based offences for sex, they're also 9%. Whereas for whites, it's 82%
Well, it
of
seems to
group-based
me
offences.
like both of you are in
group-
denialism.
No, this is based on the statistics provided by the British government.
The week of the clash continues now. Should halal meat be banned in Britain? We have the campaign's director and spokesman for Restore Britain, Charlie Downs, with us, alongside the Islam activist Abdullah Al Andalusi. So, I want to give you a minute each to lay out your case here. Abdullah, let's start with you this time. Why should halal meat be allowed in this country?
Well, firstly, kosher meat is allowed in this country, and Jewish ritual slaughter is conducted where you can't eat the meat of carrion, which is basically blood must the animal must be killed via exsanguination, right? So this is Jewish practice. In the New Testament, in the Book of Acts, technically Christians are also meant not to eat the meat of carrion meat as well. But it's but the Catholic Church didn't practice that and revise its view on that. And Islam simply follows that same tradition. So if this country is a Christian country or a biblical country, or what have you, then Islam is very much in that tradition of eating meat that is slaughtered without it being carrion through exsanguination, but with minimal harm to the animal. That being said, though, 85% of halal slaughter is through pre-stunning anyway, which is controversial in Muslim discussions anyway.
Charlie Downs, Restore Britain says halal should be banned and kosher. Why?
Well, because it is simply against our appetites as a people, I would say. We as a people, the English, have the longest tradition of any nation in the world of animal rights protections in our law. It was 1822 that we first passed laws to protect the welfare of animals and to prevent cruelty to cattle. That's what that law was. We set up the RSPCA in 1824. And as a people, we have a great deal of affection for our animals. And we don't believe in treating them in a way that we would feel is cruel and barbaric. And my view, and the view of Restore Britain, is that kosher and halal slaughter, particularly of the non-stun variety, is entirely against who we are as a people. It shouldn't be happening in our country. And it's got no real place here, in our view.
Abdullah, there is a suggestion actually that if halal meat was banned, a lot of Muslims would potentially leave the United Kingdom. And that is seen by a party like Charlie's as a positive thing. Do you view that as Islamophobic?
Well, firstly, I'd like to ask him, does your party have any actual policies or campaigning history against battery farming? Chicken battery farming.
I've spoken
industrial milking of cows and how that's done.
I personally, I've spoken a number. We're a young party. We're 2 weeks old, but I've spoken many times in the past about my personal opposition to battery farming. I think it's a rotting stain on our country. I think it's disgusting. The industrialization of the farming of animals in that way, I think, is very unpleasant. But I think it is also a result of the kind of economy that we have, which is an economy of mass and scale that tends to prioritize quantity over quality. I believe a reorientation of our economy around quality, which would be possible if there were fewer people in the country, is desirable.
So since you strike me as someone that would want to be prudent and get their priorities straight, you would normally then have to target the greater injustice, the greater inhumanity that's occurring which is by mass and scale, how cows and chickens are treated is by far the greatest amount of animal suffering in the UK. Whereas halal slaughter is a very small amount.
You can do both, though.
You can, but by starting at halal and not mentioning anything on your official platform, you've actually started your platform targeting halal and kosher. But not the bigger elephant in the room. Now that would sound to many people as anti-Semitic and Islamophobic. And I'd also like to highlight that there was a policy, and I don't mean this to Godwin's law, to break Godwin's law here, but the Nazi party banned kosher slaughter because they said they viewed how Jews slaughter their animals as inhumane. Of course, the Nazis want to appear humane, don't they? So they had the same policy, and some people might argue.
This is interesting. Charlie has been called a neo-Nazi
by
in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Of course, but some people might have concerns, and they might want to tell you that, look, history books are for learning from. They're not a playbook to reuse. right? So when we look about the history of the Nazi party, it's not a playbook; it's a history book. So the case is that the Nazis brought this, and they had a very decidedly anti-Semitic purpose behind that.
So you're basically
policy.
trying to link Restore Britain's policies to the Nazis.
No, I'm just saying that history repeats itself again for the same reasons.
Well, look, let's just unpack the things that you said there. So the first thing you said was, why are we not talking about battery farming? Why are we talking about halal and kosher? First. Fine. I mean, I think we should probably talk about battery farming. As I said, I've spoken about it in the past. I think it's pretty disgusting, and I'm sure we'll get to it from a policy perspective. But when it comes to tackling halal and kosher slaughter, it's a far easier problem to tackle because, as you say, it's a far smaller scale thing, and it's an already deeply unpopular thing. 54.5% of the British public support banning halal and kosher slaughter because, again, it is simply against our spirit as a people. We don't like seeing this sort of thing. We don't like this sort of thing happening in our country. So I think it should be banned. And if Restore Britain were to win a government, we would ban it. Let me finish. Hang on.
You're against fox hunting as well?
I mean, we haven't got a policy on that. My view of it is that I don't really care. I mean, I think if people want to do it, then fine. But
it's fine. So it's fine to brutalize foxes for sport, not even for food, but it's not fine for people to practice religious slaughter.
But we have a tradition of hunting in this country.
And I was going to say,
right
there is
then,
a
so you
tradition,
don't care about animals. You just care about some perception of traditions and minorities and immigrants muscling in somehow.
I don't think, I mean, Charlie can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't think Restore Britain runs away from the fact that part of the reason they do want to ban halal slaughter is to discourage an Islamist takeover of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, I mean, so on that,
Islamist takeover? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm deadly serious.
6.7%, whereas the vast majority of people in this country, 93.3%, is not Muslim. Where's this Islamist takeover coming from? This is ridiculous.
Well, there are Sharia law courts up and down this country. There are no-go zones in large parts of certain communities. There are
nonsense.
Well, you walk.
Go there.
Okay, yeah.
Go there.
Yeah. Go to Whitechapel.
Yeah.
See the signs which are no longer up in English. See the Muslims who are out there literally brutalizing young Christian preachers on the street. See the police who have also been subjected to an Islamist takeover ban a political party for hosting a peaceful Christian march in that area because they know it would upset community tensions. I mean, I could list example after example of signs that there is an Islamist takeover going on right now.
I think that your audience, anyone that lives in England or is within reach of London, just go Whitechapel and walk around and enjoy the food in the shops there and look. You'll see.
But it's not like you're in the UK.
You'll see white, non-Muslim Western women with mini skirts and their hair out.
Not many.
And low cut tops. But you see, no one harasses them. I go to Whitechapel because East London Mosque is there. I don't see in those issues ever.
But it is like you're in Islamabad. Let's just be honest about it.
I've actually been to Islamabad. It's almost very cosmopolitan. But anyway, yes.
You know, it's like you are in a foreign city.
What, because there are brown faces there?
No.
Well, no, the demographics.
So you're saying that there shouldn't be brown faces in England then?
No,
otherwise England will feel like a foreign country. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. It's totally.
Kind of sounds like it.
Well, I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
It feels like I'm in a foreign country. Why? Because there's brown faces.
But you're putting it in an emotive way, talking about brown faces. But demographics are a reality, and they do contribute to the feeling, the atmosphere of a place. And there are parts of this country.
More than demographics, though. This is more than demographics. And I'm not saying that we can't have a conversation about demographics. Of course we can. But if you're talking about an Islamist takeover and no-go zones of certain areas, it is a cultural takeover. It means you don't see our but you don't see our language, you don't see our food.
Yeah.
And it does feel truly foreign. And to me, that is an issue.
Well,
and I don't think I'm racist for saying that.
We speak English in this country.
Well, then why do you want non-English signs? Why does the Whitechapel train station that Sadiq Khan pays for the signage of, why is it not in English?
You know what? You've inspired me to go back to my country, which is Portugal, and campaign with, there's actually a far-right group called Chega there, to campaign to get English people out, saying there's an English take over our country because English people come, they retire in our country, they come to live there, and they don't bother to learn our language.
More power to you.
In Spain or in Portugal.
But it's happening throughout Spain. It is happening throughout Spain.
So shall I say there's an English takeover of Spain and Portugal? If I
do you
was
know,
to say that, would anyone take me seriously?
Well,
of course not, because it's ridiculous.
It's happening. There are a lot of people who are currently being booted from expatriate communities in Spain right now because they want their culture back, and that is their choice if they want to do that. And I wouldn't say those people are racist.
No one's being booted by any far-right parties.
It's happening.
Far-right parties might be calling for certain things like that in those countries, get the English out, but it's not actually happening. Okay? So my point is that English, you Anglo-Saxons go around the world. They invade here, this country, and they don't integrate at all with any of the cultures, the language, or anywhere. But they hate it when people come and just are bilingual in this country. Oh no, you can't only be bilingual. You can only know the English language here. But if you know Bengali or Pakistani, and additionally, oh no, that's wrong. You're taking over our country. We want our country back.
Well, I mean, look,
That's ridiculous.
I have no issue with bilingual people. I do have an issue with people who can't speak English in this country, because this is England, and if you want to come and live here, you have to be able to speak the language. It's as simple as that.
All second-generation immigrants speak English.
Well, maybe, but there are over 1 million people in this country who can't speak English. Right? That's a matter of public record, and that is a problem, right?
Yeah.
But on the question, on the Portugal point, I say more power to you.
Immigrants, maybe first-generation immigrants, but,
Yeah.
but their children will assimilate into the language of this
But again,
country.
assimilation, like, I think this idea of assimilation and integration really broadly is a bit of a fallacy. I mean, it hasn't worked over the last 30 years. This idea that you can just come to the country and embrace British values, as Tony Blair would call them, and become British. I don't think this works.
What are British values? British values have changed
Well, no. So British
every
values are
century.
enshrined in
British
law.
values means something different.
That's very true. But they're enshrined
culture
in
and traditions.
they're enshrined in law as democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, and the mutual respect and tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. I think that's nonsense, right?
So Spain is British, and Germany is British.
That would be the
and
view of someone like
South
Tony,
Africa is British.
The view of someone like Tony Blair would be yes, they are, right? And that's why it's so stupid. But that's what I'm saying is this idea of
These are
assimilation.
political systems. The ancient Greek Athenian city is
Abdullah, come
British because they believe in democracy.
But I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm saying that is stupid. I'm saying that it's really silly, the idea that if you come here and just believe in democracy, that makes you British. And this idea of assimilation and that's all it takes is very silly.
You're Christian, right? You're Catholic, right?
Yes.
Okay, you follow a Middle Eastern religion. Why not follow
not
the
a Middle Eastern
traditional
religion.
Anglo-Saxon religion, worshipping Frigga and Thor? And why are you using your first name is probably a anglicized Hebraic name, because as a Christian, your Christian name is a Hebrew originated name. Call yourself Ethelred and Ethelwolf and what have you. Those are traditional Anglo-Saxon names. Why are you following Middle Eastern culture, coming to our country? You have to change for a foreign religion, and you have to change your name to a foreign language and language family.
I see what you're saying. I mean, look,
this is the ridiculousness of it.
it's not, but it's not, because like Catholicism, Christianity is a universal religion. It's not of any one place.
Okay. So then, and Islam can't be as well. Islam is not a universal religion.
I agree with that. I mean, Islam is a monotheistic religion that can be adopted by anyone from anywhere. Correct?
True, but technically, Catholicism is not the Church of England.
No,
Right?
and that's why I'm not an
Right,
Anglican.
Henry VIII. I thought he dealt with you popists.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
we
papists.
are both Catholic.
Popery.
We are both Catholic,
Right.
but
He was a traitor.
But we are Christian. But look, I do think where you are being disingenuous, Abdullah, I've got to be honest with you, and I've got to ask you about that. Well, I want to talk to you about, because you speak about the East London Mosque and about Whitechapel as if this is a good example of the way that the UK has been, I use the word takeover, but you might use a different word, with
No,
Islamism.
it's not a no-go zone. There's no such thing as a no-go zone.
okay,
I've never seen any let's say non-Muslim individual
it's a no-go zone.
be attacked
It's a no-go
or
zone.
harassed by Muslims, even if wearing distinctly, you could say
that's not
un-Islamic
true.
clothing.
That's
shall
not
we
true.
say.
I mean, there's literally video of the young conservative young Bob from just a couple of weeks ago being physically attacked on video outside the East London Mosque. But I don't want to talk to you about that. What I want to talk to you about is
for being white, for being Christian. No, for what?
Well, yeah, he was talking about his Christian
For probably
faith
being
and
quite
felt,
for being quite inflammatory, most likely.
Well, you would say that. He would not say that.
Having met him and debated with him, he's quite inflammatory, and he even says that he said that Jews are not compatible with Western civilization, which is actually quite. I don't know if you agree with that. Do you agree with that? You think Jews are not compatible with British values?
Well, Jews don't recognize the divinity of Christ, which I, as a Christian, do take issue with.
Well, I don't agree with that position, and I don't agree with a lot of his positions. But it's not the point.
We recognize that. We recognize that Jesus is the Messiah and a prophet of God. We love Jesus,
but it is.
Do you think he was the Son of God?
I don't think he's divine. No. But
and so when we talk about the compatibility of Islam with Britain, that is pretty fundamental, because our entire moral universe in this country is built on the foundation that Jesus Christ was the Son of God.
No, well, it's meant to be built on his teachings, not on the fact that his position.
No. But his teachings are only relevant because he was the Son of God.
No, there are many famous British Unitarians who don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They believe.
Yeah, I know, and I disagree with those people as well. I disagree with them as much as I disagree with Henry VIII.
But what I just want to come back to, as interesting as this is, I think it's really important important that you acknowledge that there is a lot of extremism that is being taught within these mosques. And the fact that you try and present a Pollyanna-ish view of that is really, really dangerous. And I want to give you one particular example that I'm very engaged in. I'm not sure if you're aware of his story, but a man called Suhail Ahmed. Do you know about him?
There are many Suhail Ahmed.
Okay, well, Suhail Ahmed is now, he's been de-radicalized, and he's quite a famous Muslim, I would argue, but I don't think he's enough of a household name. British-born, London-born, but became radicalized within the mosques of East London to the point where he was this close to blowing up an IED at Canary Wharf. Now, Suhail Ahmed is a gay Muslim.
I think I know you're talking about now.
Yeah, and he is a gay Muslim who was taught in these mosques of East London that people like him, gay men like me, should be thrown off the top of buildings. That's what he was taught. He was so radicalized to the point where he nearly blew himself up at Canary Wharf. Now, he did end up coming out. His parents put him through an exorcism. It's a harrowing story. But without getting into the specific details, the point is you are making out as if these mosques of East London are very positive and teaching inclusion. I put it to you, they're not. They're creating Shamima Begums and they're creating young, aspiring suicide bombers. And that is a real issue that we don't talk about enough in this country.
All right, so Shamima Begum, who was actually underage and groomed, and no one cared about that she was an underage woman because she was brown and Muslim. Say, oh, well, she deserves.
She was
to be out
radicalized
there.
in East London.
She was
That's
underage, and if it happened to anyone else, you'd say that she was groomed.
Well, was she radicalized by Christians?
As a vulnerable individual.
Was she radicalized by Christians?
She was groomed by people that call themselves Muslim. Yes.
Yes, so she was radicalized by Muslims in East London. So was Suhail Ahmed,
there are people,
who nearly blew
and there are
himself
Christians
up.
that groom women, and there are people on the Epstein file, a whole bunch of Christians and
that's
Jews
what
who
about
groom a whole bunch of people.
I talk about the Epstein files all the time. It's disgusting.
From Peter Mandelson.
Disgusting. Lock him up. Lock up Andrew too. We're not debating that.
Peter Mandelson to Prince Andrew.
Lock them up.
To Jimmy Savile. And,
Lock him up.
And
Revolting.
Rolf Harris.
I talk about it all the time.
British icons.
The British Bashing Corporation
These were British icons.
Look,
who basically engaged in paedophilia.
Abdullah,
I think
no
maybe
one is going to disagree with you. The British Bashing Corporation is a disgusting paedophile-enabling organisation that should have been shut down decades ago. I'm asking you about the mosques of East London, which are radicalising young Brits to go and join ISIS or blow up gay men.
It's actually the opposite. Where I myself have expressed frustration that mosques are very apolitical. The guys in the mosques, the imams in the mosques, are very squeamish about talking about politics. All they'll talk about is how to do this ritual, how to do the ritual prayer better, how to do the fasting better. And that's all they talk about, to the point that it's very annoying in the Muslim community. These mosques. They're very apolitical.
How are we creating these young suicide bombers? The Manchester Arena bombing. How are they being radicalised then if it's not in the mosques?
They're being radicalised by what they say they're being radicalised by. If you ask them, and there are many on record, they say it's British foreign policy back in the day with Britain bombing countries around the world. Well, killing thousands to tens of thousands of people.
Ahmed, I want you to watch my interview with him. No, it's really important. This, honestly, I'm so passionate about this one because he's British-born, a young gay Muslim, and he was brave enough to come here and actually speak to me about his experience.
I'll give you one better than him.
It was about what he was taught in the mosques.
I'll give you one better than him. Osama bin Laden himself. Dr. Bruce Lawrence wrote a book called Osama bin Laden Messages to the World. It was looking at, compiled everything that Osama bin Laden has said about what motivates him and why he's doing what he's doing, what have you, right? For anyone who can watch that remembers Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden, whenever he was asked specifically, and read the book, because it's Dr. Bruce Lawrence has presented all the evidence of his actual quotations. So Osama bin Laden was said, you advocate to like terror attacks against the West, attacking as their civilian targets. Why do you do so when Islam clearly prohibits this? And he says, yes, Islam does prohibit this. It's prohibited in the Quran and in narrations of the Prophet Muhammad. So then the interview was like, well, exactly, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? And he said, because the enemy don't care about our women and children when they bomb us. So in order to protect our women and children, we will bomb them and likewise make them feel the same that we're feeling, so to stop them from bombing us.
Yeah.
So he's arguing that we should copy the West. They bomb our civilians, so we should copy them. We have a right now to copy them and go off book, off holy book.
But these people are blowing us
That's
up.
what he
Can I
said.
just come in here?
Yes, please,
So
Charlie.
we have been on record in the last 24 hours opposing British involvement in military
Restore
action
Britain,
in
you're
Iran.
talking
That's
about.
right. Yeah, we don't believe in getting entangled in foreign conflicts. Neocon foreign policy that doesn't benefit Britain in any way seems to serve the foreign policy interests of the United States and Israel. We're not interested in any of that, right?
Well,
and I agree.
Trump said something similar, and now he's bombing Iran.
Well, that is true, right? And I think that's
so
a great
I'll take a pinch of
betrayal.
salt.
But that's a great betrayal of his base, right? And I think MAGA in 2016, it was an anti-war ticket, and he has completely betrayed that. So our position is that we don't believe in
I know,
foreign entanglements.
But the point is, these people who are being created today, just let's be honest about it. We've got to have this conversation because I know this is what matters to the people who are watching. You're not creating in the mosques Osama bin Laden, you Osama bin Ladens who are obsessed with geopolitics and want to bring down the American government. You are creating young British-born radicalized men who want to blow up fellow Brits and kill fellow Brits.
I am creating.
Salman
You're saying
Abedi.
I am creating.
No, I'm saying extreme Islam.
Do you know who's creating
or
them? Do you know who's
Islam.
radicalizing them?
Salman Abedi, Axel Rudakabana.
I tell you what,
Sahel Ahmed.
I will give you advice as to
The 7/7 bombers.
as to what we should ban.
The Lee Rigby killer.
What we should ban to prevent them from being radicalized. Any international news being mentioned. Just ban that. Ban any mention in the newspapers,
again-
on YouTube and stuff of any internet, because that's what's radicalizing. Because they keep citing it.
But the point
Again,
that-
they see dead women and children coming out from the Middle East, where when Britain's supporting America, bombing yet another country in the Middle East, and they get angry. That radicalizes them. We actually go out of our way. And I've on record multiple times through lectures, even debates, even I debated Anjem Chowdhury, by the way, and I actually called him out. It was on a Lebanese TV channel. I called him out for being anti-Islam, for validating terror attacks, and he said he admitted it was a new opinion in Islam. It wasn't a traditional opinion of Islam, right? So I've been on record, but despite whatever we do, the huge tidal wave of pictures of dead babies, beheaded women and children overwhelms many young impressionable people, and they get so angry that they
not
want
an
to be
excuse.
vigilantes as much
not
as
an
there are
excuse.
far-right individuals who are so incensed by immigration that they have done arson attacks.
Where are
attacks,
where are the suicide attacks though by young people on the far right? They don't exist.
The far
They
right,
don't
the
happen.
far right prefer to live after their terror attacks. Right?
So
Yes.
look, can I just come in here? Because this is really important. Because again, I think we're getting away from the point here. I am completely prepared to accept that young Muslims in Britain are being radicalized by what they're seeing coming out of Gaza and elsewhere in the Middle East. On the British government's dime, right? And this is American foreign policy. They're looking at that. They're thinking that's my people being blown to pieces on my tax dollar, right? On my tax pound. I mean, I don't think that justifies violence, but if I was seeing the same thing being done to my people, which actually in a lot of our towns and cities is happening, mass rape, murders and all the rest of it, I would feel pretty angry as well. But again, we're back to the point of that would not be an issue if these people weren't in the country to begin with. And that ultimately is the problem. Because, come on, Abdullah, let me finish, right?
Yeah.
Because you've been talking a lot. And I think a lot of what you said is very interesting, okay? But the British people have never given democratic consent to mass immigration. And at every opportunity for the last 60 years, we have voted against it, and yet it has still been imposed upon us. This is a fundamentally anti-democratic policy, and yet it's still been done. We've had mass immigration from countries like Pakistan and elsewhere, Muslim parts of the world, into our own country, and there has been a fundamental incompatibility with those people and our own. And so we're now in a situation where we do have people in our country who are looking at imagery coming out of the Middle East, getting angry about it, quite understandably, but then taking that anger out on the British people because they're in Britain. And so if the people weren't in Britain to begin with, we wouldn't be having this problem. And that's what it comes down to for me.
Sure. I often like to note that if you actually applied Sharia, we'd execute rapists and punish people.
That's something that Restore Britain can agree with.
With capital punishment for committing murder and so on, and even for theft, we actually have corporal punishment, very strict corporal punishment on thieves to protect people's property rights.
What
So
do you
actually,
do? Cut their hands off?
amputation of the hand is obviously what everyone is the traditional Islamic legal approach to people who steal, not because they are poor, because they're hungry.
But putting that to one side,
they steal for
Abdullah.
luxury items. They steal for as a profession. Because what do you steal with? Right, you steal with your hands. So
But
it's
putting that
meant
to one side, can you, address what I've said? Address the fact that if there was not a Muslim population in Britain, everything we're talking about wouldn't be an issue. Everything Dan's talking about radicalization in mosques or because of imagery seen on the internet and all the rest of it, wouldn't be a problem for the British people.
Well, it depends. I mean, there would be, depends on the cause and the issue. You'd still have immigrants in this country, mass immigrants in this country, because
Why?
Because you guys and the people in the West, you don't have children enough.
Well,
right?
yeah, and this is
If
something
you
that
don't
I've
have,
spoken
if
about
you
at
don't,
length.
if you don't have enough children, why do you think that even the Conservative government that came in mentioning it would be harsh on illegal immigrants and cut migration, still allowed the most migrants in compared to the other parties before it, because it's an economic requirement that let's say white people can't retire in their elderly age with no one to look after them.
So again,
right?
Abdullah,
they have to have, and it's no coincidence that 51% of the health service are migrants or children of migrants.
So look, we don't disagree on this. I have spoken at length in the past about the fact that the kind of economic system that we have and the kind of liberal culture that we have does make it very difficult for people to have children, and demands, therefore, infinite cheap labour from other parts of the world to come to our own country in order to prop it up, to prop up the pensions, to prop up the servicing of the public debt, to prop up all of these things which are going to collapse in the immediate future, in my view.
Don't blame Muslims
I'm not.
for
No.
it.
But this is what I'm saying, though. I'm not blaming Muslims. I'm blaming the British government for imposing a policy that the British people never agreed to on us. So what I'm saying is, if that policy was not put into place, and sure, you can say it's a reaction to the economic reality of the country, and I agree with that, but nevertheless, the British people never gave their consent for it. And if a Muslim community didn't even exist in Britain, if this policy had never been implemented, the problems that we're talking about today of the compatibility of Islam with Britain wouldn't be a problem.
No, you just
Final
find,
word to you, Abdullah.
Well, you'd find another minority to target, which is historically Oswald Mosley.
But am I targeting a
Oswald
minority?
Mosley.
I've said for the entire
Where's
duration.
my final word? I'll let you speak.
Sorry.
Oswald Mosley targeted the Jews. He said that Jews were incompatible with British culture. There's huge waves of these foreign hordes coming over here. And before that, it was Catholics. Catholics are not integrating into Protestant British culture. You would be viewed as public enemy number one 150 years ago.
True.
But the point I'll say is that we're talking about halal meat. I know this is what issue we're talking about. And the fact is that you say, we care about the animals. The foxes, we don't care about them. That's part of our tradition to mistreat and abuse foxes. But when it comes to Muslims, halal and Jewish kosher, we care about the animals. That's why we care about. And that's why people say, and it's not to insult you, but people say that, isn't that what the Nazis did? The Nazis were inhumane to humans, let alone animals, but they outlawed animal vivisection and they outlawed kosher meat because they claimed, we are humane, we're a humane party. And really, it was one particular group of people they were targeting, and it was just a smokescreen. So this is why I'm saying that this is the concern. You say, why do Muslims vote for Green Party, what have you? Anyone in any country who lives there, who feels part of that country, and there's a party that tells them, you don't belong here. When we get into power, we're going to kick you out. They're going to vote for anyone else that will protect them. So if you want to blame anyone, blame yourselves, if that's what you argue, for making minorities of people in Britain, British citizens, so scared, they will go to parties that even contradict their very ethos just for safety.
Well, look, this has been an absolutely fascinating discussion. Abdullah, I have great respect for you coming in, actually having the dialogue. It's something I think needs to happen more, if I'm honest. I think that is one of the problems. There is a real breakdown these days from having tough conversations about not just Islam, but all of these difficult issues. And the mainstream media are too scared to talk about it at all, as Charlie well knows, because Charlie is now just called a neo-Nazi for talking about this
By
stuff.
Reform UK, by the way.
Yeah. So look, fascinating discussion. Abdullah Al Andalusi and Charlie Downs from Restore Britain. Very much appreciated. Now, we move over to Substack for the Royal Uncancelled After Show next. So at this stage, we come off YouTube, head to www.outspoken.live. We will be back every weekday, though, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Remember to hit subscribe right now if you're watching on YouTube. And remember, too, we are available as a podcast as well. You can subscribe completely for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you for your company today. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.